11 days ago, and it's required by law for any community that wants to adopt a TIF or amend a TIF, as we're talking about in this case. Well, actually, we're talking about a new TIF in tonight's public hearing. We already amended the downtown TIF to remove the 3 buildings in question. So that had to come first, the amendment of the existing downtown TIF. And so tonight's focus is the creation of the new TIF for those 3 buildings. And it's just those 3 buildings. And it's not a Colby TIF. It's not associated with Colby in any way, shape, or form, except the buildings that we've targeted have been buildings worked on or built by Colby. And so as part of our obligation when we submit the TIF document to the state, which will happen very soon after, hopefully, after your meeting tonight with approval, is that we show proof. We've had a public hearing, entertain any comments. So have been buildings worked on or built by Colby. And so as part of our obligation when we submit the TIF document to the state, Tom, we've lost you. Yeah, lost your audio, Tom. When we submit
I'm struggling here because I
TIF document
have the
to the
Vimeo
state.
link open and I have the Zoom link open, and I'm hearing 2 audio that's not synced up.
Tom,
You gotta close the Vimeo.
Close the video.
The
Keep
Vimeo.
the Zoom.
Got it. That was the only link I could find initially, and that's what I started.
Okay.
Got it.
I'm not a cat. Did you hear that?
I felt it. I didn't quite hear it.
Okay. But did you have a question, Tom? No.
No, my question was, what the hell's going on? I couldn't.
Okay. So the point of a public hearing is to entertain any questions from the public about the city's intent to create another TIF, what it means, how much money, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any from the public or the council. Of course, this comes up on the agenda, so the council certainly has every opportunity when it comes up on the agenda to question it. And I hope you all got the email that included 4 attachments that talked a lot about TIF stuff. And that I hope you found helpful to understand just how many TIFs we have and what it is they do. Questions, comments at all?
Anybody from the outside?
So I would just point out that if there are any attendees on the meeting that want to ask a question, you just need to use the raise your hand function. Put your hand up and you can be authorized to speak and ask your question.
Looks like Brad has his hand up.
Brad has a question, so I'm gonna, Mayor, may I bring Brad in to ask his question?
Please do.
Okay. There's Brad. I don't know where Brad went.
Can we hear him?
There's Brad. Fuck. There you go, Brad. You can unmute.
Can those documents be forwarded to anyone who did not get them?
Sure. Yep. Is electronic copy okay?
That's
for you,
perfectly
Brett?
fine.
Yep. Now you're a member of the TIF committee, right?
Correct.
I talked with Steve, our city manager, today about scheduling a meeting, and with Eric Thomas too, about scheduling a meeting of the TIF committee coming up, because we want to get the same information out to the TIF committee, Brad, that the councilors got just a couple days ago, which is a listing of all the TIFs that we have, how they work, what they're about. Because, and I won't go into any more details on this now, but we've received a request to amend another TIF, which is at the Lockwood Mill. And so the TIF committee will have to meet on that So we're hoping to get an informational, educational meeting with the committee first. And then if that new TIF proposal can come before you, then eventually we can get it to the council.
Yeah, you could just email it to me. That'd be great. Thanks, Mike.
Will do. Patty, do you have an electronic copy of that as part of the development program? No, you just had a paper copy that we kept on record as we're supposed to with the city clerk.
Yes, I had a copy of the development program, but it
All
didn't
right.
include summaries of other TIFs.
Okay, I'll get it to Brad. Any other questions during the public hearing I can answer? Okay. Brad, since we got a little break in the action here, can I have your email address? I probably have it somewhere, but quickly, if you want to give it to me.
Yeah, it's Brad H81. So Brad H81 at Gmail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Flavia, do you remember how to change your name on there?
I just did it. I'm gonna
Oh, okay.
close it.
When we all got in here, we had 4 Steve Dailies. Oh, we still got 2.
Yeah, one clean shaven and the other not.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mayor, I believe Councilor Green wants to speak.
Go ahead, Councilor Green.
Thanks. I just while we're waiting on comment, or for anyone else to comment, I would like to thank Mike for the documents. I kind of got them. Eventually, I was able to sort of put the whole thing together, but I'm wondering if you or Steve could just say a few words about how the expenses or the funds that are used from the TIFs each year are reported out on, and who decides on how that money's spent, because the allocations are pretty broad in terms of what the funds can be spent on.
Right. The council is the approving body for how the TIF monies are spent each year or allocated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that last year didn't get handled as completely as it probably should have with the council. And so there wasn't a lot of understanding, I think, on the council's part as to how the funds had been allocated. But each year we prepare a sheet for the council that shows for the 5 or 6 TIFs where monies get allocated to different expenses. We show that one page and all the allocations. And you folks really approve that as part of the budget process. And that happened last year, was approved, Rebecca, as part of the budget process, but it wasn't as transparent as it could have been.
Oh, okay. So it's approved by the council at the time of budgeting.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And you'll see that again this year.
Okay, great.
Yes, Tom?
Along those same lines, when I was looking through this agenda packet here, there's table 1 that itemizes all the expenditures. No, I'm sorry, table 2 is what I'm looking at. Table 1 and table 2, and that is for the lifetime of the TIF. Is there?
Yes.
Is there? There are no. year by year, that is not broken down year by year. We decide that as the council, specifically how much from each of those categories is getting, and that's a rough guideline for how that's going to be paid. I see Eric nodding.
Well, the last attachment in what I sent you, that last sheet, is the year by year allocation, which can change year by year. That table you mentioned is kind of a total picture of the term of the TIF and how the money is distributed. But year by year, we have that one sheet, which was attached, should have been as the last attachment in your council pack, in your TIF email that I sent, had 4 attachments, the very last one.
That table 2 refers to the general purposes that the TIF proceeds will be applied to.
I don't know if you can see this one sheet, but that sheet, yep, that's the one to look at for the budget year we're in right now. That's how TIF funds were allocated this time to different areas of the city expenses.
Patty, real quick, I just got a text from Matt. He's also looking for the link for the meeting. Matt Skane.
Okay.
Yeah, and to follow up on what Mike was saying, Tom, in the development plan, we want to leave ourselves as many options as possible.
Oh, yeah.
So there are a lot of things listed in there that we may not actually end up using the TIF money for, but we want to have as much flexibility as possible moving forward. So we tried to cover as many things that could come up in the future as possible.
And how binding is that map right there?
Nothing is binding because we can always amend.
And some of it will depend on what the state comes, if the state comes back to us with any recommended changes.
And we have a lot of options on this one because there's no credit enhancement agreement involved. The money we're not giving money back to a developer. And so we're not tied to living up to any obligations we might have made to a developer. So that leaves the city with a lot more flexibility if things change in the future to either amend the TIF or change how we're spending the money. Or I see Bruce has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Mayor, may I allow Bruce to ask a question?
Yes, please.
Bruce, you're muted, but go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Actually, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is unrelated to this, but is this the same link for the meeting that's coming up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's when you had a little dead time. I thought that's when I raised my hand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, you gonna be Jake Queller for the day, or you gonna change your name?
Jeez, I don't know how to do that. I couldn't get into this damn thing. Now I gotta change my name?
Patty sent the email March 5th. March 5th.
I was just calling you to make sure you had a link.
I got a thing saying like, hey, you should have received, but there's nothing else that says there's no other link other than the one that you sent me.
Well, you're here.
We had this issue last night. I don't know how to change my name on
I
this
just
thing.
did it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patty. That's why you're my favorite. See? These other people are helping me.
Mike, it's not your fault.
Jeez.
You do know people are watching.
Do you want to hear anything about the TIF district before we go to the regular meeting?
I'm sorry?
You missed the 6:45 to 7 o'clock portion of
Mike.
the event.
What?
Anything? A chance to talk about it anyway.
No. I'm good.
All right. So, Patty, we're going to get started with the meeting. Did you want to talk about how it's going to work before we get started?
Yes, thank you. So this is a webinar platform in Zoom, which is a little different than the regular meeting platform, where the panelists that are on the screen right now are allowed to speak and be seen for the public to view. And then people who want to watch the meeting and maybe ask questions, participate slightly, are considered attendees. So they don't show up on the screen, but there is a list of attendees, and any attendee that wishes to ask a question or make a comment can simply press the button to raise their hand, and through the mayor they can be recognized, and I can give them the opportunity to allow to speak. And then after they've asked their question or made their comment, then I take that privilege away and they're back in the attendee list. If you wish to promote anyone to an attendee so that they can be seen and heard at the same time, Mayor, let me know to promote them to a panelist, and I can do that. Those people that are being promoted or then demoted, there's a slight pause on their screen. It looks like they may be disconnected, but they're really being reset to a new privilege. So hopefully it's a little rough start. I think we realize now that you're not supposed to share the link. Each panelist has an individual link, so that you would pop in with your own name. So sharing the link pops you in as that other person's name, which we've discovered. So I will try to do a better job at sending out the link later, maybe Monday rather than the weekend before, so that it's not buried in your email. So I apologize for that.
No apology necessary, Patty. This is probably a me issue. So you did everything correctly, as I'm the only one who was not able to get in. So listen,
It's definitely
okay.
more of the
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get into. I couldn't find it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Bobby,
don't worry,
we had
Mike.
Mike thinking
You're
we were
not
all
alone.
I take ownership.
All right. Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available on the city's website or on the Facebook page, I believe. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. Finally, councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the end of the meeting under public comments section. Now we're going to look at Rick Foss and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
And the mute button. To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
Thank you, Rick. Moving, do I have any conflicts before we move on to the agenda? Seeing none. Patty, see any? Nope. All right. I will move to approval of consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Patty, roll call.
Council Morris? Whoops, sorry, I've muted some people. Council Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yes.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to unfinished business, order 275-2020.
Can I make a motion to take the entire agenda by title only?
Seconded.
Can I get a roll call on that, Patty?
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yes.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Order 275, 2020, approving tax increment financing district, city center TIF, and related development plan.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Let me see, anybody raising their hand?
Councilor Frankie is raising his hand.
Go ahead, Claude.
Right. Earlier today, I sent everyone a statement that I'm going to read into the record. City Council was being asked to approve the application for a new TIF district composed of 3 buildings in the downtown area being developed by Colby College. The stated purpose of the new TIF is to promote economic development that will broaden the city's tax base, will fund environmental improvements within and near the district, and will provide economic development programs and skills developments and training to the residents of the city, and will improve the general economy of the city, end quote. Specifically, the buildings to be developed by the Colby are, quote, expected to generate significant traffic, vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle, etc., into the Waterville downtown. Of increased city property valuation on state revenue sharing and state support for local schools. I find that the financial argument is unpersuasive. The state reduces its revenue sharing and support for schools based on the fact that the city has become more prosperous, as reflected in the increased in taxable property valuation. Rather than view such reductions as a penalty, they should be seen as recognition that the city's economic development plan is working and making the city more prosperous. More significantly, the city will, when the projects are complete, see a $900,000 increase in tax revenue. The city does not sequester the tax revenue in the TIF district. It will remain in the general fund, used for any other city needs such as schools, parks, road improvements, etc. As for the repair of streets and roads, my preference is to first update the city's long-term plan for repairing all of the city's streets and roads, including sidewalks in the update. There is no question that the city's roads and sidewalks need serious investment. However, sequestering $900,000 per year for 30 years to be applied on a limited basis and restricted to street and sidewalk repair appears to be much too narrow a use for this new revenue. Accordingly, neither the financial reasoning nor the sequestering of the $900,000 in new revenue, nor the limited suggested use for the sequestered $900,000 in new tax revenue are persuasive. For these reasons, I will vote not to apply for this TIF district as written. Any TIF district should have a solid underlying rationale, an economic development rationale to support an economic TIF, a housing rationale to support a housing TIF. Part of that rationale should be clear explanation of how the city will spend tax revenue to achieve the goals of the TIF district. In other words, I'm not opposed to TIFs. But I don't think this one, as written, will get my support. Thank you.
Councilor Thomas.
Well, first of all, if we do nothing, these properties are already in the downtown TIF. So they are already in a TIF district. So if we do nothing, the money is already going into the downtown TIF. The advantage of putting them in a new TIF is that we get a 30-year term. If we leave them in the downtown TIF, we only get 15 years of additional revenue out of these properties. And we need to be thinking ahead because currently we're spending all of the downtown TIF money on certain expenses. In 15 years, that money won't exist. So we have to be thinking, how are we going to offset those funds 15 years from now? And that's part of this TIF. And while I've wanted it to be a priority that we spend this money as much as possible on roads and sidewalks, We've left the options very open in the TIF development plan. So there actually are a lot of other things we can spend the money on related to economic development if we find that we can't use all the money for roads and sidewalks. And one of the number one things I keep hearing from people is great, all this downtown investment is great, but what does it mean for the rest of the city? And this is a way to take the revenue that's being generated by this investment in the downtown and invest it in the other parts of the city. And the biggest need we have in our budget is infrastructure, roads and sidewalks. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And the state has given this TIFs as a tool to maximize the revenue that we generate from our taxable property. If we don't take advantage of that tool, we're doing a disservice to the taxpayers. Why would we give up funds when we don't have to? And then on the flip side, the state over the years has shifted the cost of maintaining state aid roads, which are roads that run through the city that are partially the state's responsibility. They've been shifting those costs to the city. And so this is a way for us to cover some of those shifted costs on some of the state aid roads that will come up in need for repair over the next 30 years, including roads like Silver Street, First Rangeway, a lot of College Ave, some of the other main roads that come through the city. And so while I appreciate Councilor Frankie's concerns, again, I want to reiterate, if we do nothing, the money goes into the downtown TIF. And those funds are reduced 15 years from now. We'll be left with a hole from the downtown TIF. And we have an opportunity to, really make some headway on roads and sidewalks. And I think the residents want to see it done. And so I'm 100% in favor of this TIF.
Now, Councilor Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, but the $900,000 that we're going to get out of these 3 buildings to be able to do some of these infrastructure projects is almost as much as what's entirely part of the downtown TIF now, is it not?
It's as much as all of our other TIFs combined.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, you know me, I've been for this since we started discussing it. We discussed the infrastructure that the South End so desperately needs. And I think that this will give Councilor Frankie some wiggle room to do some of the other projects and things that he may want to do down the road. We left it pretty vague, saying that we want to do the streets and sidewalks for a reason, because we wanted to try to get to as many of those streets and sidewalks for those tax dollars as we could.
And I would also remind you, we borrowed $1 million for the build grant, and with the plan of using this money to pay that bond payment, we're going to have $1 million at the concourse soon if we're going to do that project, which we can use these funds for. Castangwe Square was removed from the build grant because of funding limitations. So there's a possibility of reviving that project and using funds from this TIF for that project as well. And the more you start to think about the things that we already have in the works that we're going to need funds to pay for, that this TIF can be used for, I don't think we're going to have a hard time spending this money on necessities, not on wants, but on needs.
Like some council chambers. Anybody else? Councilor Klepak.
Just another clarifying question. If at any point in the future, for whatever reason, there is a budgetary shortfall in the general fund, we could, during that fiscal year, move to capture some of the money that is in the TIF and shift it to the general fund for that particular year.
That's correct. And then on top of that, future councils, if 20 years from now they're like, oh, we're awash in TIF funds, we have no way to spend it all, they can amend the TIF. So they could shorten the term so that those funds go into the general fund if they so choose in the future because of changing conditions. So we haven't locked ourselves into anything, but this leaves us the most options moving forward. Steve's got his hand up. You're muted, Steve.
You're muted, Jay. There you go.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. My understanding of the financial transactions involved with these TIFs is that if we had a $1 million retention on any one or all the TIFs, if that was $1 million a year, at the point where the TIF district expires, and that $1 million goes then to the general fund, that the effective impact of that is not $1 million, but because of state revenue sharing formulas, it's actually $650,000. So
Exactly.
that's the major benefit of retaining the funds in the TIFs.
Right. We'd basically be giving away $350,000 a year by not putting it in a TIF district.
Right.
Councilor Green?
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, confirm what you said, Eric, that the funds that were generated from this TIF could be used for roads and sidewalks anywhere in the city. Is that true, or only within the district?
The best place to use them is within the district. The second would be routes that lead into the district that are impacted by this improvement. For example, there's probably not much of a justification to spend this money on Cherry Hill Terrace, for example, because that's a big stretch to make that argument. But certainly the residential neighborhoods that surround downtown that are within, short distance, the two go hand in hand. I think it's foolish to make all of these investments in the downtown, but then not invest in the residential neighborhoods that surround the downtown. If you do one without the other, then you're only completing half of the pie.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for Cherry Hill Drive. I just wanted to understand the limitations, but that makes sense. I think it's great that we don't have to be limited to the actual TIF region to do improvements. So thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any other hands. Are there any participants with hands raised? Do we have any public comment? All right, Patty, can I move to a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss, Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
No.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 34, 2021.
A resolution providing for establishing a city manager evaluation committee.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think we had to decide who was actually going to be on this committee. Because we have not filled that in yet. Volunteers?
I see Claude's got his hand up. Councilor Frankie.
Can I make a suggestion? We're going to meet at our retreat again next Monday. I think this might be that might be a better time for us to take a few minutes and work out exactly how we would I would like to have this have this process work. So, in other words, I'm going to recommend that we table until the next meeting, and in the meantime, let's figure out exactly what we're going to do.
Do we have
I think I'm going to second that.
I have a question.
Councilor Klepak.
Since the retreat on next Monday is a public meeting and was is announced as such, if we were to meet next Monday and figure out what the formulation for this committee is, would it be possible for us to go into official session and vote it in then without having to wait into April? Because I'm just trying to be mindful of being able to give Mr. Daly as Steve as much support as we can, and we've been sort of delaying this a little bit. Would it be possible to do it during that session, or would we have to meet?
I would say that you could take a first vote today, and then when we discuss it on Monday,
This only
one
Mayor,
vote.
this only requires one vote.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I saw the first reading and I got all confused.
Sorry.
I guess what I would say is there's two different things. One is who's on the committee, and I don't know why we need to wait to decide who's on the committee. Second would be establishing the criteria by which we're going to evaluate Steve, which I think is something that the committee would work on and then bring back to the bigger council. So I think the sooner we establish who's on the committee, I guess I'm just not sure what we're waiting for. I mean, it's not that big a deal if we wait till next week, but if there are people who want to serve on this committee, I don't have a problem appointing the committee tonight. And then the work of establishing what the criteria are and evaluating is gonna come, once the committee starts getting together.
So I'd like to say that Councilor Frankie does have a motion up, and it's been seconded. I think that we should sort of vote on that before we start talking about anything else. Councilor Foss?
I'll wait for the vote on this.
Okay. Patty, can I get a roll call on the amendment or on the tabling?
Councilor Frankie has his hand up as well.
Councilor Frankie, go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
Well, before we start, I'm perfectly willing if we have three councilors who want to be the committee to go ahead and do that right now, and then let them work out the criteria and talk about that at the next meeting.
It's going to be two.
This can be three, Jay, because we're going to be discussing personnel. So
gotcha. Okay.
While we'll have to advertise them as public meetings, we'll immediately be going into executive session, and so they won't be open to the public anyway.
Okay, that works. Do I have three councilors that want to get on this committee?
We have a motion to table on the floor right now, so.
Do you want to rescind, Claude?
I think he wants to pull it.
Let me withdraw the motion to table, and we'll see if we can get three people to volunteer to take on what looks like a piece of cake job.
I'll rescind my second.
All right. So by raise of hands, do I have any volunteers?
I'm certainly happy to volunteer, but I also want to open up the opportunity for other counselors.
Yeah. You're one of three, so I've got you. Councilor Frank, did you have your hand up also?
Well, I was going to volunteer a couple of other counselors, if that's possible.
Is one of them Councilor Green? Because I know she wants to get on there.
Yes.
All right. So we got two. Anybody else?
Looks like Councilor Oliveira had her hand raised there.
I was gonna nominate Council Green.
Councilor Green, we've all got you.
And it could also be Jay. It doesn't have to be three counselors necessarily.
I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
No, Rick, go for it, man.
I'm gonna nominate Jay for this first round. I'll tell everybody that I need to stay out of the running until fall, just because of schedule. I don't have a lot of time in my schedule right now. So,
and I don't mind being that third voice on there. And I work with Steve a lot. Go ahead, Patty. I'm sorry.
I would just point out that there would need to be an amendment to the resolution because it was amended previously to appoint 3 members to the city manager evaluation committee that consists of 3 counselors.
No.
Let's just finish the discussion and then we can offer an amendment if needed.
Councilor Frankie.
Well, I think you would be an excellent person, Jay, but remember this is a council decision that has to be made. So I really think we ought to stick with counselors on this.
Councilor Clayback has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Councilor Kleepak.
I would be willing to serve on this committee as well, if that's necessary. I'm all right with that.
There you go. We got
but I can do it.
nope. There's three: Eric Thomas, Councilor Kleepak, and Councilor Green.
So I'll offer that as an amendment that those be the three counselors.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Absolutely, yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Kleepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Move as amended.
Second.
Can I get a roll call on that?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Kleepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Moving on to Resolution 41, 2021.
A resolution providing for support for an extended producer responsibility for packaging EPR law.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Thomas.
So I don't think much progress has been made since we tabled this last. We do have somebody here from the National Resource Council of Maine to speak on this issue. Apparently what other towns are doing has been making a more general statement in favor of extended producer responsibility laws without naming the LD. I don't know how the council feels about doing that instead of waiting for the language to come on this particular bill. And I don't know if they want to, we'll let councilors speak and then perhaps we could bring the person in from the National Resource or the Resource Council of Maine.
I'm just looking for hands. Anybody got? Councilor Frankie.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Eric. As sometimes it's better to be a little more general, particularly if we're not the legislative body that's going to take the actual action. So I think a slight amendment to the resolution would make it easier to pass.
Somebody want to propose that amendment before we move on?
I'm just looking for the exact language that they sent me. Okay, so I'm going to read to you, I'm going to offer this as an amendment. So we'd be striking the language that's in the resolution. And instead it would just be this line, which is what the Topsom City Council adopted. It says, in the spirit of extended producer responsibility, the city of Waterville supports the concept of the EPR packaging law, and we encourage the legislature to continue working to develop a policy. So I'm going to offer that as an amendment.
Second.
Patty, can I get a roll call on the amendment?
And I can send that exact language to you, Patty.
Thank you. Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Kleepak, Council Kleepak.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm considering here. I can go with looser language at the moment. I don't have the LD right in front of me. 1431, but yeah, okay.
All set?
I think so.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
I don't think I actually voted on that one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Councilor
Yeah.
Green? I skipped right over you. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll vote yes.
Thank you.
Then do we have any discussion as it's been amended moving forward?
I'll move it as amended.
Second.
Roll call now. I heard a voice. Councilor Green.
Well, since we have someone here to speak about it, it would be nice to hear from that person before we vote.
So that's Chrissy. I'm going to not butcher her last name.
Chrissy Adamowitz.
Yes.
I will, whoops, where did she go?
She just raised her hand. So
Oh, I see. Thank you. Chrissy, I am moving you in, and if you unmute, you'll be able to speak. Chrissy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, I was waiting for that delay. Thank you all so much for considering this resolution. My name is Chrissy Adamowitz, and I am the Sustainable Maine Outreach Coordinator for the Natural Resources Council of Maine. We are a local environmental advocacy group based in Augusta. We've been around for 60 years doing environmental policy in the state of Maine. And yeah, I just wanted to sort of provide a really quick overview about the law. You know, if you follow recycling, you probably have seen in the headlines since 2018 that municipal recycling programs have struggled across the country, but also here in Maine to stay afloat because of unexpected rising costs to keep recycling programs. And that is what sort of started this whole process, and is why lawmakers in Augusta are looking at more sustainable solutions to recycling. And extended producer responsibility for packaging is a type of law that's used all over the world to make recycling programs sustainable. It's all over Europe. You know, China's looking at implementing it by 2022. It's really the norm, and it's becoming the norm. There are 12 other states that are looking at it right now, too, in the United States. So it's really a much more sustainable way of doing recycling. And what it means for towns is the way it works is it sets up basically a missing middleman. You know, right now, recycling isn't coordinated. It's really just kind of a Wild West, you know, more or less. And so we need a coordinating body between the folks who are making and introducing recyclable packaging into our communities and municipalities. You know, because the way I like to say it is that recycling really starts at the design stage. And so it's really an upstream solution, looking at the packaging manufacturers and involving them and giving them a stake in the game. So that by the time that packaging comes into our communities and gets to our municipalities, you know, it's already been planned for recycling, because a lot of the costs, the unexpected costs, are coming from contamination and confusion and just packaging material that isn't readily recyclable. So, you know, that's really it in a nutshell. The way it involves those producers and makes them a stakeholder is that requires them to pay a fee into a fund that is then distributed to municipalities. So you would be able to get reimbursed for your recycling program. And actually you would get reimbursed for your trash programs too. And I know that's a high municipal line item on your budgets. And so it really would take that taxpayer burden off. The Maine Department of Environmental Protection expects that it would save Maine taxpayers $16 to $17.5 million every year on trash and recycling. And, you know, it creates a fee structure to incentivize reduced waste and more recycling. So it's really that missing middleman and that coordination that we desperately need. Towns all over the state of Maine are adopting a municipal resolution like Eric showed you. Topsums is a great example, because what we really want towns to do is just show that they're educated about EPR for packaging, and just to basically give that general support to lawmakers to come up with the nitty-gritty details, because towns need help. And it's a non-binding resolution, doesn't bind you to anything. If the law were to pass, it's totally optional for you. So if you decide down the road that you don't want to participate in the EPR for packaging law, you don't have to. You can continue funding your waste stream with municipal taxpayer funds. And so that's really it in a nutshell. It's not tied to a bill, and I don't encourage towns to tie it to a bill. there isn't a bill number now, and I wouldn't tie it to a bill because really we need to move towards this concept of EPR, and these laws are big and bulky laws all over the world. So again, just supporting the concept is really what we're encouraging towns to do. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Councilor Klepak?
Thank you, Miss Adamowitz, for reminding me about this issue. I have to admit there, when I was taking the vote, I was struggling a little bit to remember all the details of this. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about it. First of all, the people that we're talking about here who would be paying into this fund, are these packagers primarily in-state or out-of-state corporations?
So these laws around the world really target those big corporations that are already doing this in other places. On our website, which is www.recyclingreform.org, we have a list of, it's a sample of over 500 brands that you find on the grocery store shelves that already pay for our recycling programs in Canada. So you'll see like Kleenex and Oreos, and Amazon would be responsible, and Hannaford brand stuff would be responsible. So brands like that is who it targets. There are exemptions for small producers, which are, will protect a lot of Maine small businesses. And then for the middle range, there's a flat fee category, and those are low fees. They're usually between $500 and $7,000, depending on your tonnage.
So this would be a net influx of cash into the state of Maine and into the municipality here.
It would be a new source. And by now, some people are probably wondering if the cost is passed on to consumers, but there isn't evidence.
Follow-up question, yeah.
And we've looked long and hard, and we've talked to a lot of experts around the world who are whose job it is to help these corporations comply with these laws. And they've told us that they have never seen evidence of that. And part of the reason is because you get that middleman helping corporations think about design and recycling. They actually often see savings because they're getting help reducing their packaging. And when they reduce, they actually save money. So, and again, I have all sorts of slides that I could show in another platform if you wanted, and they're on our website too.
And then the last question I'm going to ask is, Chrissy, you suggested that we should not actually tie our resolution to a specific bill, this LD 1431 necessarily. So it is your position that the council should actually support the language that Councilman Thomas has put forward.
I think that you should support language that you're comfortable with, and I think that what Councilor Thomas put forward is great. We have a template that maybe you've seen before, and that template we worked with the Maine Municipal Association to produce. It's the big long one that's like a page long, and it has a bunch of whereas statements. So that one, was vetted by the Maine Municipal Association. And then just a note about LD 1431, we're trying to scrub our website of that language just because that was an old bill from 2 years ago. It doesn't really matter anymore. This year's bill is still in the revisor's office, doesn't have a public name and number yet, but we're hoping very soon that we'll get that information.
Thank you for clarifying all that for me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else with questions? All right, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to, actually, I have Ordinance 56/2021.
An ordinance providing for amendments to the personnel ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, Patty, can I move to a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business. Resolution 58, 2021.
A resolution providing for support for the Maine Department of Marine Resources proposed amendment to the Kennebec River Management Plan.
Move to
Any
adopt.
discussion?
Second.
No, sorry. Any discussion? Councilor Foss.
Yeah, I can't support this. We've got a couple of problems, and me and Councilor Klepek talked about this. I can't. There's a couple of sticking points for me, and him and I conversed quite extensively on how to get fish ladders and how to make things right. I don't think we're at a point yet to accept this the way it's written right now. The tax implications, the lost revenue there is one of the concerns right now, along with somewhere around 40 megawatts of transmission power that we're going to lose out of these. So this doesn't have my support tonight.
Councilor Klepek.
I'll let Claude go ahead first.
Oh, sorry, Claude. I have to jump between screens. I don't always see all of you. Good. Councilor Frankie.
That's perfectly all right, Jay. It's one of the functions of Zoom meetings. I just want to point out that the Department of State is simply updating their biological rules for fish migration. While it may ultimately end up in dam removal, at this point, it's simply the scientists updating the science. I think that one of the things that we've learned over the past year is if the scientists want to update the science, then we should let the scientists update the science. So I'm going to support the resolution.
Anyone else? Councilor Klepek?
Yeah, I would also echo what Councilor Frankie has said, and simply say that this is not a decision to remove dams here. This is a decision to recognize one of the informed opinions in a complex matter, it's simply that. It's non-binding. It's simply stating that we as the city recognize the state's own fishery managers' expertise in this matter on the specific question of what is necessary for fish survival. That is one component of a much larger problem that does involve all of the concerns that Councillor Foss has about taxes and whatever, all the various aspects of this complex problem. We're simply recognizing the importance of the state's fishery manager's opinion on the matter.
Councilor Thomas.
I want to echo some of what Tom is saying. I want to be clear. We're not voting tonight on whether or not we think the dam should be removed or not. What we're doing is framing the discussion for the future. And I don't think you can have a real discussion about whether dams should be removed or not, unless you're going to, if a goal of the state is restoring the fish population, let's stop kidding ourselves. You can't do that without removing the dams. That's not in question. The question is whether the fish are more important than all of the other factors involved in that decision. And you can't have a real discussion until you admit what's happening on the one, we keep making these companies jump through hoops and do half measures to try to make ourselves feel good about how, taking care of the fish. I mean, at some point we have to decide, are we all in on the fish, or are we, more concerned about other factors? And so I don't have a problem with endorsing the science behind the amendments to this document. But I do want to be clear that by voting to support the change in the guidance document, I am not voting to say the dam should be removed. I'm voting to say that that's an important part of any future discussion about whether dams should be removed or not. And so I've gone back and forth on this, but I think I'm likely going to fall on supporting the amendment.
Sorry about that. Somehow I got disconnected. Am I back now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I think there's any other counselors have any comments right now before I move to public? I have some comments, but I would try to give everybody space and talk.
I'd like to say something real quick. When I look at this, I the way that this agenda sometimes doesn't really construct itself in a way that kind of like makes sense, but sometimes like it does. And tonight, the resolution that we just voted on for the plastics, we're just saying that, yeah, we support the idea. She made it very clear that that just because you support the idea, should anything happen, we can certainly not take that road. But it allows us the ability to have the conversation and be part of that conversation. And I see that exactly for this, this particular piece. It allows us to have the conversation and doesn't shut it out just on a, I don't understand that, or like, I don't know this or that. Like this allows the conversation to happen and the science to kind of speak for itself, it's not magic, it's, science is like magic, only it's real, and it's cool stuff. So I think that it's important that we listen to those people and at least hear what they have to say and then make that, informed decision, down the road. But at this point right now, I'm in full favor of supporting this document, this update.
Any other counselors want to speak before I move to public, before I have anything to say? I think Bruce White has his hand up. Patty, you can bring him in.
Yes. Bruce, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, all of you, for your input and your thoughts. Today I did email each of you, and I appreciate those that had time to respond. I know some, it was short notice. So basically, I mentioned that I sent in testimony on Monday to the Department of Marine Resources, as others did. And, my point was that this current proposal does actually aim to remove the dams between Waterville and Madison to allow for fish passage. I am primarily concerned with the detrimental impact the removal of these dams would have on the local community. I can't stress enough the importance of the property tax income for these communities, currently over $2 million. We should all be very concerned about the impact on the Sappy mill up along the Kennebec, who is one of the largest employers in the surrounding area. I really just think we need to, I think the decision you make, although you say it will bring discussion later, I think it also sends a signal to the Department of Marine Resources that you're in favor of removing dams. And I think I would like to see you really hold off a bit. I don't think there's any harm in waiting to get some info, get the financial impact. Has anybody talked with anybody, any management at Sappy? That would be a question I'd appreciate hearing. There seems to be bipartisan opposition to this at the state level. And many of the area towns, I believe, are opposed to this. And I guess I would also say there are also other solutions than removing dams, right? We know that they can put in fish ladders, fish ways, whatever, fish ladders. So let's look at the other solutions before having this impact. So again, SAPI has over 700 jobs, employees at SAPI, and those jobs probably have an impact, or the mill would have an impact of hundreds more, you know. And we're always advocating for good paying jobs in our area. And I really believe this could have a negative impact, and the message you send could, you know, have an impact. So please consider waiting until more info is in. Thank you.
All right, honestly, Councilor Klepak, I want to make a statement, but I'll let you guys all speak. I want you to get your say in, so please.
Yeah, I just a couple things in response to Bruce. I appreciate his concern for workers at SAPI. I think no one here wants people to have their livelihoods impacted. I attended that meeting yesterday, the public hearing yesterday, and one of the things that came out of it was just regarding SAPI is that there has not been a rigorous assessment yet. There has been what I understand to be a back of the envelope assessment by engineers or some sort of consultant that they might have had, but that is not refined because there's not really a plan for implementation up and down the river that gives a good sense of what the actual change in the river will be. I think that the numbers that they were running were very rough at that meeting, and it was suggesting what would happen if the dam was any of these dams, particularly the Shawmut Dam, was utterly removed. That is not what, like Councillor Thomas said, this is not what we're considering right now. We're not making decisions about removing dams. We don't even ultimately have that power. Simply, we are recognizing the expert opinion of the managers. When you had talked about fish ladders being viable options, there are other implementations of fish ladders throughout the state that have not worked. And the engineers and marine biologists and fisheries managers that were at MDMR addressed that. And they said that they really don't think that is a workable solution for the entire migratory pathway here for the fish. That is their sole interest. They are not there to run an economic analysis of their recommendations. That is part of a different, larger discussion that would happen at any point down the road.
All right. With that said, I want to discuss a few things. I've gotten an opportunity to talk to most of the counselors. I didn't get a chance to talk to Councilor Frankie or Oliveira, but I talked to Councilor Green, Councilor Klepak, Councilor Foss. Eric and I haven't really had a chance to touch base. Mike Morris and I have touched base. I believe in a lot of what Councilor Klepak has put forward. The letter to the editor that will be coming out tomorrow. I understand. I also believe that Councilor Klepak, out of all of us, is probably the most qualified person to speak on the migration patterns of fish. I will point out a few things. Today, we have heard, and I know it was a little colder, but we've heard that Councilor Foss and State Rep Bruce White agree on something. So hell is definitely froze over a little bit. I also want to point out that we are all elected by taxpayers. We are responsible for the financial well-being of the taxpayers. while the environment and fish are important, it's our role and duty to make sure that we are protecting the taxpayer and that we are not doing things that negatively impact the condition of the city. That means finding ways that balance out the needs of both concerns. One can't be more important than the other. I think that there is a hybrid solution out there to be found. I am hopeful that with a little added pressure, Brookfield will come to the table. And as I've stated, and I've talked to city manager, if they don't come back with something that is a marvel of engineering, that is going to be a beacon for what other states and other municipalities can use as a model for fish ladders, then shame on them. They've had 20 years, almost 20 years of ownership to fix some of the problems that we've run into, which is why this is actually coming up, because there are no fish ladders that are working. Is that correct, Councillor Klepak? You're saying that at least 90% of what's out there isn't functioning the way it should be?
I'm not giving any percentages or making broad. I'm making broad statements about the efficacy of various fish ladders. I am a biologist. I am not a fisheries manager. This is why I want to. This is why I look to experts in this field who it is their profession to hold expertise in this field. They have a much more extensive knowledge of the implementations across the state, and based upon what Sean Ledwin, the head marine biologist who is representing the expert opinion of his entire team at MDMR, based upon what he has said, that the type of fish ladder, for example, that Brookfield has proposed as a way to, as a stopgap measure to put over Taconic Falls, that type of fish ladder doesn't work because it is short run, steep ascent, and forms vortices that does not adequately pass fish. That if that is going to be our primary consideration when we're thinking about dam removal, then so be it. I do not anticipate that it will be. There are all kinds of considerations, as we've heard, that need to be weighed in any decision that comes forward. But my concern here is that, first of all, I want to stay laser focused on just recognizing the expert opinion of the state fisheries managers. And furthermore, I have to say, beyond that, I am concerned about the potential implementation of a fish ladder that the state's own fishery managers have said is not going to pass fish the way and meet the targets for fishery restoration that they have set, and in so doing, potentially irreparably damage Taconic Falls, which is a part of Waterville's historic waterfront and could potentially at any later date, depending upon the decision of a host of governmental agencies and governing bodies, not have a dam there and become a more a functional part of Waterville's recreational waterfront. So that's a separate concern. I don't want to get too lost in that. But
I want to point out one more thing, and I agree with some of what you said, but if there was a ladder that they could come up with that the MDM that could fit within this plan, that the state agency turned around and said, hey, this would actually work, would that make a difference? And I know that you say that we are talking about one portion of this, but I am under the understanding that Winslow is opposed, Fairfield is opposed, and they have their own financial reasons for that. Our financial reasons are a little different and they're less expensive. I feel that in 10 years' time, we could find a way to make up that money. I feel like all of this was done pretty suddenly. In the middle of a pandemic, they decided to propose new changes on December 29th. I still think that strikes me as a little odd. I don't think that we have all of the information that we need in order to make a sound decision. I believe in science. I want to listen to what the scientists are saying, but I also believe that they've made this plan with not all of the information, because just today I've gotten confirmation that Brookfield is willing to figure out a state-of-the-art model for making a fish lab. Again, that may be further down the road, and we're not, but one step leads to another. This is going to be one domino that we vote on that's going to make all these other dominoes start to go in effect. I'm going to stop there. Councilor Foss had his hand up, then Councilor Frankie.
So, Mayor, you made a couple of points. This is another one of those opportunities that come along in this council that I and somebody else on the other side of the political aisle come to an agreement on. And when I got the email from Representative White, I about fell out of my chair, to be honest. And I'm not, and I joke, but I don't. This is another opportunity where we meet in the middle. Okay. I have had three generations of mill workers work through to retirement out of the Sappi Mill. And what I know of the Shawmut Dam in particular is that they made that dam when they built the mill to offset the power consumption that they take from the mill, so they could to credit their expenditures. You take that dam out and you severely weaken that. And for all the paper industry in Maine that has gone out of this state, and Representative White said it, you're not just going to affect the 700 jobs sitting there. You're going to affect the loggers, the loggers driving the trucks, the gas stations not selling any more diesel, the chainsaw operator in the woods. There's a like the mayor said, there's a domino effect there as well that would be felt throughout this community. All of Kennebec, Somerset, wherever those logs are coming from. So, we put our stamp of approval on tonight. We nudge that first domino, like the mayor says, and I can't disagree with him. I can't agree with him more on that. And for me and Bruce White, anybody paying attention to politics in the last year, him and I agreeing on something on exactly the same points says a lot. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilor Frankie, I'm trying to see if anybody else has their hand up.
Well, I have just two quick points to make. I'll reiterate my first point, which is we're simply endorsing the biologist doing biology. That seems like pretty simple. Number two, the decision about removing dams is not made by the state. It's not made by the city. It's made by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So this is something that is going to happen in a far away place by bureaucrats who don't care about whether we have a power generation station in our backyard or not. And they are going to look at the science, and if there are negative consequences for the localities, such as reduction in taxes for Waterville, then it will be up to people like our state representatives to see what kind of mitigation that the state can provide to make up the difference. In other words, these are things that are going to happen way down the road. So let's stick to what's in front of us right now, which is supporting scientists to do science. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor Coelho, there are folks, attendees that have questions when you're ready.
I'll let Councilor Thomas speak, and then we can go to them.
I was just going to point out that Nick Bennett's had his hand up for a while, and then Bruce White's got his hand up again.
You can let them in, Patty. I'm sorry. I'm trying to jump through like 6 screens on my cell phone for this.
Okay, so I will bring in Nick Bennett. Mr. Bennett, you are muted. There you go.
Thank you very much, members of the City Council. My name is Nick Bennett. I'm the second staff person from the Natural Resources Council of Maine to talk to you tonight. I'm NRCM staff scientist. I've been working at NRCM for 24 years, and I've been involved in a number of very large dam removal projects in Maine, including the Edwards Dam removal, the Fort Halifax Dam removal, and the Penobscot removal. In all of the dam removals that have happened in Maine, those removals have involved things like water intakes or moving municipal infrastructure. There's been money to pay for that. In point of fact, on the Penobscot, my organization and a number of the other organizations that removed 2 dams there, we bought those dams and paid for their removal. And we also paid for a water intake for the Old Town Fuel and Fiber Mill, which was a state-of-the-art water intake. And it was much more environmentally friendly. The mill ended up sucking in a lot less fish, which was good for the fish and good for the mill. It cost our organizations $10 million to do that, but we did it. And we're not super wealthy organizations, but this was such an important project that we went the extra mile. We've heard SAPI's concerns. SAPI is an extremely innovative company, a very important player in the international paper industry and in employment in central Maine and also in southern Maine. We would absolutely not support removing dams that threaten SAPI's ability to get water from the river. And we believe that a solution to their water intake can be found. I don't think it's going to cost the kinds of sums that they've mentioned. That would be something that would have to be looked at in great detail before anything happened to the Shawmut Dam. And I would just add that one of the other things that's true is that rivers that flow more freely are much easier to meet water quality standards in. So while it might involve moving infrastructure for SAPI, it would also make it much simpler for them to meet water quality standards with their waste discharge, because the waste is moved through the system more quickly, exposed to more oxygen, and degrades more quickly, as opposed to an impoundment where it sits and rots. And there are water quality compliance issues for SAPI in the Shawmut impoundment. So that's another piece of this puzzle that I think would work well for them. The reality is that Brookfield has had a decade almost, and the dam owners before them had close to 15 years to put in a fish lift system that worked. Brookfield had a plan that they agreed to with the federal government in 2013 that they were supposed to have fish ladders or fish lifts at all 4 dams between Waterville and Skowhegan by the end of 2019. They didn't do it. And one of the reasons they didn't do it is because it cost them money and they realized they could delay and get away with it. And another reason they didn't do it is because in general, fish ladders don't work well. If there were easy fish ladders and fish lifts to put in at facilities, it would happen. On large rivers, particularly for shad and salmon, it's very hard to pass them. There is no river system in the world where American shad or Atlantic salmon have been restored over more than 1 dam. And that fact is driving DMR's fisheries biologists to raise alarms here, because there's been a lot of talk of we're going to have fish lifts and fish ladders that work, but we don't have them. And I think DMR is seeing that it's not likely to happen. If you look at places where they've tried these on the Connecticut River and on the Merrimack River to save salmon, they failed. And the US government has officially given up restoring salmon in those rivers. They're essentially extinct. They've also failed for shad on the Susquehanna. Same situation, big dams, multiple fishways, not able to pass fish over multiple dams. So I think we really would strongly encourage the city council to vote in support of the scientists at DMR who know what they're doing, who've been trying desperately to restore these fish for decades. I've been lucky to be a part of that effort for more than 2 decades. And this is a big step forward. So we appreciate your discussing it and urge your support.
I have a question for Mr. Bennett. Let's say you down the road you remove the 2 dams we have here in Waterville. If you're not going to be able to remove the dam over by Sappy, or it has to stay and most of its function intact, what does that do to the fish?
I think you've got, one of the worst situations you can have for sea-run fish in this part of the Kennebec, because 60% of the habitat for shad and blueback herring is above the Lockwood Dam. All salmon spawning habitat is above all 4 dams. Essentially, all of lamprey spawning habitat is above all 4 dams. If you want to restore endangered Atlantic salmon, and they are critically endangered, they're on the edge of blinking out in the United States, you have to restore them in this river. And there's no way to do that without getting them to the Sandy River. And we are very skeptical that there's a fish passage system that's going to work at 2 dams on this river. DMR's more willing to give it a try. They have recommended removal of 2 dams in this management plan. We've asked them to go further because, as I said, there's no record of restoring Atlantic salmon in a big river anywhere in the world over more than 1 dam. Another big problem with the dams themselves is the impoundments. So you have essentially lakes created behind these dams. And the lakes both confuse the upstream migrating fish because they lose sense of the river current. They also favor warm water species like smallmouth bass and largemouth bass, which are voracious predators of salmon smolts and juvenile shad and alewives. And so you're setting up an environment, even if you put in lifts that the fish can get up, you're setting up an environment that's very favorable to the creatures that prey on those fish. Invasive smallmouth and largemouth bass. You're also forcing them to go downstream to a great extent through dam turbines. And so DMR estimates that 50% of salmon smolt are killed in the dams going downstream. It's really a terrible gauntlet for them to run. And, you can look at spilling, you can look at larger and larger bypasses for downstream flows for these dams. But at that point, you really start hitting the power generation. And again, for all 4 of these dams, the power generation is about 46 megawatts. That's 6% of Maine's hydropower. All 4 of these dams combined are less than half or about half the hydropower capacity of the big 2 dams at the headwaters of the Kennebec, the Harris Dam and the Wyman Dam, which don't harm sea-run fish restoration and which generate a ton of power. Maine has 120 dams that generate hydropower. We get more than half of our capacity from 9 of those dams. Most of those dams lack fish passage and do terrible damage to sea-run fish and generate very small amounts of power. These 4 dams do terrible damage to sea-run fish, and they generate a medium amount of hydropower. They're not the smallest of the small, but they're not big and really important dams either. So there are a whole bunch of factors here that need to be brought into play, but there's a very difficult and so far historically unachieved task of trying to restore American shad and Atlantic salmon above 4 dams. It hasn't been done anywhere. And you really have to restore all of these species of fish if you want to save salmon. Salmon, for example, need sea lamprey. because salmon are much more successful at laying their eggs in old sea lamprey nests. They depend on those nests to be able to lay their eggs. And sea lamprey also don't like to move through fish lifts. So this is a complicated process, and a simple engineered fish ladder or fish lift, they just haven't proven able to do that for this full suite of species. They're better at alewives and smaller rivers, but for shad and salmon and these other species, there's not a good record of success. I've taken a lot of your time, and I really appreciate it.
Mr. Bennett, I appreciate what you said. And one of the things you keep saying that sticks out to me is that nowhere else in the world, or at least around the country, has a fish ladder system been put in place that works. Which to me just is another problem that I think we're not finding a solution to. This is the United States of America. Why are we not finding fish ladders that can work? I mean, maybe they just won't, but it seems to me that if your organization has been looking at this for decades and these companies have been dragging their feet, and then you have bureaucrats in Washington that are ultimately going to make this decision for us, how come nobody has gotten together and created something that works? Is it always an issue between an organization like yours and the business? I'm trying to figure out where the bottleneck is.
The bottleneck is in the fish, in the biology of the fish. So the problem is that wherever the fish ladders have been built for American shad and Atlantic salmon in the Northeast, and also for Atlantic salmon in Europe, you simply don't get anything like normal passage. And there are a whole host of reasons for that. For one thing, entrances to fish ladders and fish lifts are small. And so it's very hard for fish to find them. And if you're a salmon coming from the Atlantic Ocean and needing to get up to Phillips, Maine in order to spawn, that's a tiring, terribly dangerous process. And if you're delayed by 3 or 4 days at a dam, you're either going to turn around and go out to sea, or you're going to die because your energy stores are minimal. And so it's just not an engineering solution that has been very successful in places. And then it's compounded by the fact that if you have 4 dams, let's say you have 4 dams, and you can get half the salmon by the first dam, then you get half the salmon by the second dam. You're down to a quarter of the salmon that showed up at the dam to begin with. And then you get half the salmon by the third dam. You're down to 1/8 of the salmon that showed up at the first dam to begin with. And then you've got dam number 4, and you get half the salmon. So you're down to 1/16 of the salmon that showed up at the dams before. These fish are not meant to deal with that type of loss on their spawning runs. They simply aren't. And you can't expect a population to be self-sustaining with that kind of losses at each of the dams. And so what DMR has said is, you're going to have to pass between 95 and 99% of salmon at these dams in order to make it work. And we don't see a lot of success at that kind of level. It's a hard thing to do, and the fish aren't designed for it. That's not how they've evolved. And Brookfield's had a long time to prove us wrong, and they haven't. And the previous dam owners haven't proved us wrong. We signed a settlement agreement in 1998 that was supposed to result in the rapid restoration of fish above Waterville. It's failed. We gave the dam owners a chance. They're supposed to be the people with the engineering expertise to be able to do this. In fairness, I don't think it's a doable task at these 4 dams. And it hasn't been on the Connecticut River, it hasn't been on the Merrimack, and it hasn't been on the Susquehanna.
I appreciate your input, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I'm glad to have the extra knowledge. I'm always somebody who's looking to get their mind changed. I think that there's still a lot of information out there that I don't have, which still makes me uncomfortable with this. But all plenty of counselors here seem to be in favor at the moment. So I'm going to pass this through. Anybody else want to say something else before I move on?
Mayor, I think Bruce White has another.
Okay, I have Counselor Green first. I believe she had her hand up.
No, I
No.
don't have a hand up.
It's weird. So every once in a while, when you're not speaking, the Rebecca Green Counselor Ward 4 like covers your face, so I can only see part of you. I see the lovely paint in the back though, so I do like that.
Shall I bring in Bruce White, Mayor?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Bruce. You're on. You're muted.
Thank
And
you.
Bruce, very quick. We've gone through this.
Yes, I realize that. Thank you. And as Rick said, we agreed on one thing in the last couple of years. Thank you. And again, thanks for responding. And also what Claude had mentioned about FERC. I mean, we know when it gets to the federal agencies, is that where you want this, you know, we lose control as it goes up the ladder. We know that. So I just want to really stress that, you know, everything I've heard here is that it sounds like it's unlikely that fish ladders work. So it's almost like we're confirming that the only option here is taking these out. I think that you're sending a message as a council when you vote to push this forward. I'd rather see it, you know, get more info over the next coming weeks, months. There's not an urgency for you to make any decision. And I will say, since I worked in a paper mill that is no longer here, they look at their bottom line more than they look at anything else. These corporations, they do great for us, but and SAPI has their international, as we heard, and it doesn't take much for them to make a decision to shut down and move to another state or another country and to do their operation. We were a profitable mill in Winslow, but just not as profitable as other mills. So take that into consideration again. It's huge what these corporations, and it's a fine line there. So, but I also appreciate, you know, that doesn't mean I'm against, you know, fish or anything, obviously, but the impact on people's lives can be devastating when you're talking 1,000 jobs and more and the vendors around. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Bruce. I think you've pretty much beat this, and we talked about this a lot the other day. Councilor Klepak, did you raise your hand? Oh,
Eric.
Eric, go ahead, Tom.
Just real quickly, I mean, one, if SAPI or any other business was dumping things into the river that were killing all of the fish, there would be no doubt that we don't want to allow that, right? And this is,
I would hope not,
in some ways, the same thing. I mean, it's different because they're not dumping waste into the river, but at the same time, what's going on is killing all of the fish. So, you know, let's be honest about that. And that's what this is. What this is the conclusion that I've come to is we have to be honest. Let's stop fooling ourselves that we can have our cake and eat it too, right? So either the fish, restoring the fish is the most important thing and we decide we want to do that, or we look at all these other factors and we decide those are more important. But let's not fool ourselves that there's a half measure we can take that's going to be a perfect world and allow all this stuff to happen. And until we're honest about what the science is, we can't have a real honest discussion about that fact. And yes, we need a lot more information about economic impacts and what it would do to SAPI. And if we get to the point of actually discussing removing the dams, that work better be done. But you have to frame the discussion with the fact that there is no way to restore the fishery without getting rid of the dams. Then the question just becomes what's more important. And we can't have a real discussion as long as we keep fooling ourselves and thinking we can have it both ways, and we can't. And so that's what I see by endorsing the amendments to this document. They're saying, if we're serious about restoring the fish, this is what needs to be done. Otherwise, let's admit to ourselves that we're not, in fact, serious about restoring the fishery. And on the flip side, and maybe some people aren't going to like to hear this, but if we're not, in fact, serious about restoring the fishery, why are we making these companies jump through hoops and pretend like this is actually going to work and spend millions of dollars? You know, that's the other side of the conversation. If we're going to admit that these things don't work, why are we making them do it if we don't care? So, you know, that's where this conversation is for me. And again, my vote tonight is not a vote to remove dams. My vote tonight is a vote to be serious about what the conversation is.
Well, I agree with some of your points, Eric. But what I've heard through all this, and I'm still missing some information, is that we're saying that fish ladders don't work, or that we haven't created a fish ladder, a fish.
The scientists are saying that.
So, yes, they are. And I will believe scientists. Science is subjective. People, no matter who you are, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a scientist, whether you're a politician, everyone has an agenda. And I don't think that making sure that we are looking at the impact it has on human life as opposed to the fish life makes it anywhere. I don't think that we're diminishing how we care about the migration of these fish. There's so many pieces to this pie that we are talking about one piece of a domino and nothing else. Yes, great. If the fish need to migrate, even if later on down the road, and I agree that any dam removal talk is a decade away. It's not happening today. We are opening the door to that. And there are other municipalities that have lost dams and they've seemed to recover since. Again, I keep hearing about SAPI, and I love what SAPI does for our region. I hear about Winslow and Winslow being opposed, and I hear about Fairfield being opposed. And I always remember that we're Waterville. I give zero expletives what the other towns are going to do and what their agenda is, because for us, it's always and should be Waterville first. What is the impact it's going to have on Waterville, our residents? Do I want fish to go upstream and spawn so that we have more for generations to come? Yes. But when somebody tells me that there is not a solution in place, and they've been discussing this for 10, 15, 20 years, that means that nobody's been serious about creating something or engineering something collaboratively that works. We've got commercial entities that want to do something one way. We have scientists and professionals that want to do something another way, and they're all looking at it from their own perspective. It's our jobs as counselors and elected officials to see what's coming down the pipeline. As you've said with your budget, it's not a one-year budget, it's multiple years. We need to look and take a hard look at what this and how this will impact us in the future. Do I think in 10 years from now, when you decide to remove the dams, will we find a way to recoup some of that money? Absolutely. I think that we would have already done enough to generate that $250,000 to $300,000 a year in revenue. Call me whatever you want, but I find it abhorrent that we cannot find a solution that benefits everyone. And it has to benefit everyone, or we all suffer through it no matter what. Again, this is one vote. You guys are deciding on what you're doing. I'm not against fish migrating. I just think that there are other solutions out there, and we are presented with one solution that isn't fully vetted. It's vetted by one segment of a population, the scientists. We believe in science. We believe that the environment is changing, but there are steps that we can take along the way that isn't just a head forth. I'm nervous about the dams. Our chamber is nervous. Stakeholders in our city are nervous about what that's going to look like for us in 10 years. And I think that we're not doing enough to assure them that that's not what we're looking to do. And that's all I got. I mean, if somebody else can speak. Claude?
You're muted, Claude. Claude, you're muted.
Excuse me. If there aren't any other members of the public who wish to speak, I'd like to call the question on this.
I see no other hands raised from the attendees.
You're muted, Jay.
Sorry, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Somebody just put their hand up.
Oh,
Willie Grenier, shall I allow him to speak?
yeah, but can we actually put a timer on? I think Claude's right. We've sort of beat this one for a while.
I will.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah.
Steve?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes, sir.
The question's been moved. You have to vote on that, don't you?
Claude, you're the expert. I love Claude rule.
I'll withdraw my motion so that you can speak, Mr. Grenier.
Yes. My name is Willie Grenier, and I'm a resident of Waterville, member of Trout Unlimited. And 21 years ago, I saw the breach of the Edwards Dam and how it all changed. So 17 miles up the river, we had fish coming up. Almost as soon as the dam was within a year, all of the fish that normally come up to the river came to Waterville, 17 miles. And the water quality changed from Class D to Class B. And I could go anywhere along the river and see the bottom at times, not in flood conditions. And over the years, I have taken lots of people fishing in Taconic Bay for shad. And one of the reasons I do that is I wanted to show them what the shad fishery is all about. And the idea that when I first started fishing it, in a season, I was able to catch about 60 fish, shad, in the total season. And now I can catch over 60 shad in a day, in half a day, with another person fishing with me. I've taken all sorts of, different people, environmentalists, reporters throughout the state, and who wanted to learn about shad fishery. And I just feel that somewhere along the line that this river can be improved, just like the section from Augusta to Waterville has changed so immensely, and it's a different population of fish, and it works. But they obviously can't get beyond the Lockwood Dam. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Patty,
I'm going to make a point of order that would move this to a vote.
Yeah, I was about to go to a roll call.
Okay.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
John?
Not here.
I think we lost her.
No, Council Oliver.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
No.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Has Council Oliveira popped back in? No. The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
All right, moving on to Resolution 59, 2021.
A resolution providing for referral to the planning board.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll move to a roll.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira is not here. Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
I believe this is the sign that Thomas College asked us to change. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, I'll vote yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. moving on to Order 60, 2021.
An order providing for approval of easement agreement.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? No, Councilor Frankie.
I would just ask the city manager to explain why we're changing this easement.
I'll be happy to. This easement is being proposed by the Kennebec Sanitary Treatment District in order to move the location of their sewage main that was ruptured last fall or last summer, sometime not too long ago, but it was at the time in the intersection of Water Street and I can never remember the name of that street.
Sherwin.
Sherwin Street.
Sherwin, yes, thank you. Created a lot of traffic issues and a major construction project, and the sewer district has proposed to move the main behind the building that is on the east side of Water Street, and then run it down the north, down to the south on the east side of Water Street, where it would re-enter the right-of-way, but away from the intersection. The city engineer has looked at this plan, has indicated that there is no harmful effect to city property or city operations, and I think we're clear to go with it.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, Patty, can I move to a roll call?
Council Morris?
Yes.
Is Council Olivera back? No.
I think we're going to lose her for the remainder.
Okay. Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay, moving on to Resolution 61, 2021.
Bid award public works equipment.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? I don't see any.
Council Frankie?
Sorry, Claude.
Again, I would just pose the question to the city manager. Was this done by competitive bidding?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, now we'll move to the roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yep.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to Resolution 62, 2021.
Bid award, traffic paint, and reflective beads.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any questions?
Council Frankie has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Claude, sorry.
You know what I'm going to ask, Steve?
Yes.
Was this competitive bidding?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
As was the next one.
I will tell you, Claude is a self-admitted stickler, and I love it because you got a question on a procedure or something, you got to write to Claude. He's got you covered.
Well, for everyone's benefit, what we're doing with the agenda packet that you get is that the page right after the resolution is a display of the bids that came in on each of these purchases.
Yep.
I see. So those are actually on the city website that people can see the bid awards?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure about that. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Any other comments? All right, I'm going to move to a vote. Okay, roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to Resolution 63, 2021.
Bid award Public Works equipment.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Claude, any questions?
Yes, sir.
You've answered them ahead of time, so I'm
All
all
right.
set.
So let's move to roll call, Patty.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Moving on to Order 64, 2021.
An order providing for authorization to accept and spend grant funds.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any questions? I see none. I will move to roll call.
Oh, Counselor Green has her hand up.
Yep, Counselor.
Oh,
Since
there it is.
Claude
I
didn't
see it.
jump in, I'll be
I
the
see it now. Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Green.
So grant funds, for maybe just give us a brief rundown, since that seems to be the way we're doing it.
Well, I think that the resolution is pretty self-explanatory. The money is going to be spent at the Quarry Road recreation area, and it's going to involve signage at the trailheads and key junctions within the trail system. Work on Wally's Way, on the bike trails, and it's pretty straightforward right there.
Okay.
I think Matt Skane was with us if you want something more in depth than that.
Matt has his hand raised. Would you like me to recognize him, Mayor?
That was a yes from Jay.
Yes, please. Eric reads
So
lips.
Matt is in. Matt, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. Right, we're proud to have this grant. It was very competitive. It's $50,000 from the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. We'll match with in-kind installation services with the Parks and Recreation Department, and there's also a cash match from the Friends of Quarry Road. So looking forward to getting this work started this spring.
Great.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Pat, I want to make sure, Patty, I want to make sure you understand that Councilor Oliveira is back.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know. I see a second Rebecca Green.
I'm trying to change the name again. Sorry, my internet went down.
Hey, Matt. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor Klepak.
I just wanted to say congratulations. I obviously support this fully. Congratulations to Matt and the whole Parks Department for landing this, and to the Friends of Quarry Road for supporting it. All of these updates are all of these funds are going to be used to do some really important updates on one of Waterville's real gems. Quarry Road Waterville is unbelievably lucky to have road, and these bridges. The improvement and the finishing of Wally's Way is extremely important. It'll make that pathway safer and more fun for all the skiers, particularly all the young people in our community, the young elementary school children that use that facility. So I'm really excited that money came in. Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're here.
I want to reiterate what Councilor Klepak said. Our department heads go unnoticed, doing a lot of things in the background that people don't always see. And even with Patty and other department heads, Waterville is extremely lucky. Our department heads are rock stars. You guys do some really great work, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Seeing no other questions, I will move to a vote.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you again.
All right, and I think we have something else. So, Eric,
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion to waive cloture to add. Oh,
I think I've got 3 or 4 names on there.
resolution 64-2021.
It would be 65, actually.
65-2021, which is about appointments to the TIF committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. Shall we take a vote on the waiver of cloture?
Please.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. So for resolution 65, do you have language that you could read, Counselor Thomas?
Good question.
We did get it.
A resolution providing for appointments to the TIF Advisory Committee. Be it resolved by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers that the following individuals be added to the city's TIF Advisory Committee: Scott Jones, Claude Frankie, John O'Donnell, and Eric Thomas. Be it further resolved that the attached purpose statement be adopted to assist the committee in furtherance of its work. And then this got emailed to everybody this afternoon, I believe. Yeah.
Can I ask a point of clarification here?
Sure.
When you say Eric Thomas, you mean you, or because I've had this problem recently?
We
It's
mean
me.
this one, our Eric Thomas.
It's
Okay.
me.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to claim him, but he's ours. and this came about that when I did appointments, there were some people who sort of fell off the radar. There are some people that were on this TIF committee that didn't reapply, and I wasn't really sure why.
I think we should make a motion to adopt this right before we.
Oh, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Do you want a roll call on that before I talk about it?
No, you can not.
Okay. Sorry.
The voting comes after the talking.
Got it.
The motion becomes before the talking.
So, and I had talked to Steve, and we had some discussions. And Claude, you've had a lot of questions about TIFs and different ways of how they work. And he had said that you had expressed some interest in being on this committee. So I thought it was a good opportunity for you. And John O'Donnell, who was the former Ward 5 counselor, he was on that TIF committee a while ago. And Scott Jones, who's been around for quite a while and has an extensive financial background, is a great addition to that list to round people out. And really, at the end of the day, you counselors are the ones that the TIF stuff will come to you. You will make that final decision like we did today. And I think it's really important to have a couple of you on there to be able to come back to the larger body and give us information. I found that when I was a counselor and I was on different committees, I may not have always agreed with what came out of that committee, but it gave me an opportunity to speak to my other counselors about my opposition. And if you haven't or aren't a part of some of those discussions, that may slip you by. And that's it. That's all I got.
So what are you asking for there?
I'm asking for those 4 names to be added to the TIF committee, who most have already served other than Claude. Go ahead, Claude.
Well, just very briefly, as I said earlier tonight, I think that the design and presentation of TIFs is very important. It's very important to do it properly. And so you've all seen the way I approach it. So if you are willing to put me on, I'm happy to serve.
And we know that he's going to look at all the details, which we like, because that's what Claude does.
Every last one of them.
Yes, absolutely. Claude does the boring reading. Claude reads the very, very fine print on the back of aspirin bottles. Any other?
You did know that I'm a lawyer, Jay.
Absolutely.
I have to read the back of the aspirin bottle.
He wrote the fine print.
He did write the fine print. Thanks. And that was it. Any other questions or comments? I'm just looking for hands. I see none. I'll move to a roll call, Patty.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Moving on to councilor updates. Do we have any? I'm not seeing any. If you want to speak up, you can. If not, we're going to move to. Oh,
Actually,
go ahead.
I do have one. I had promised Maria Coletti that her elf. Is she here? Is Maria Coletti on?
Yes, she just raised her hand.
Oh yeah. Maybe I'll wait until the public comment section and let her, because she's here. I'm not going to say anything. I'll let her do it. Sorry.
Can you bring her up, Patty?
I can. Maria, you are on. There you go. Thank
Hi,
you.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Beautiful. My name is actually Julia Page. I am partners with Maria. So I'm speaking on the behalf of both of us, but I am one of the program coordinators for the new Alphon Youth and Community Center mentoring program. First of all, I just want to thank Councilor Klepak and Councilor Green for both encouraging us to present and share our new program. With that being said, we are excited to share that this spring we're going to start implementing a new mentoring program to serve the children of Waterville and surrounding areas who attend AYCC's after school program. Our program focuses on relationship-based mentoring that shows children that they are cared for and supported, which will lead to aiding in their positive youth development. This is an opportunity for community members to connect with our younger population and help support them become future leaders who will impact our community in years to come. Mentoring has been proven to have a rippling effect as 90% of mentees will become mentors. So this shows that there is a multitude of positive impacts on both mentors and mentees. So I just wanted to share this opportunity in case you are looking to make an impact in your community. This could be a tremendous way to do so. We are currently accepting applications for volunteer mentors who will spend 1 hour a week over the course of a calendar year. And that time will be spent just doing activities and sharing hobbies with their mentees. This volunteer position will be in person and supported by both myself and Maria. So if you're interested in learning more and volunteering yourself, you can check our program out at our webpage, which is at www.clubaycc.org/mentoring. Thank you.
The AYC, another gem we have in this town.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I'm not seeing any other hands. All right, Councilor Klepak, you were going to say something after she spoke?
Oh, no. That was it. I was just trying to give her.
I got that email the other day. I think that's great. I think as a child, when I was younger, our Boys and Girls Club was attached to the Big Sisters and Big Brothers, which was kind of a neat way to get us involved with other adults that cared. And I think that Waterville's full of adults that care, so hopefully we start signing up.
Well timed. Certainly the young people in Waterville need this kind of support coming out.
Our young kids have suffered so much during this pandemic. It's ridiculous. It's great to have organizations that are dedicated to making sure that the youth in our area, not only in our city, but in our region, are taken care of. All right, seeing nothing else, I will move the manager's report.
4 quick items, Mr. Mayor. First on the list here is that the fire department's new tower truck at a cost of $1.3 million will be placed in service on March 29th. All the training has been done. The truck has been riding around town, and the drivers have been trained, and the crews have been trained on how to work from that truck. Moving on, the council's finance committee is going to be meeting with myself, the finance director, and Mike Roy on March 22nd, which really means that we won't have the budget to the council and the mayor on the 23rd or by the 23rd. It will be sometime later that week or perhaps the beginning of the week after that. And we won't have a schedule for council meetings regarding the budget until after we meet with the finance committee on the 22nd. Then wrapping up with some very good news, we continue to have 0 COVID positive cases within our workforce. Everyone is doing a fabulous job of keeping safe and being respectful of others. The police and fire departments are leading the charge on that, and Public Works has been amazingly safe and virus-free. City Hall has been moving along just very fine at this point, and we're looking forward to the end of all of this. That's my report for tonight.
Said Waterville is extremely lucky to have the people that we have in place.
Hey Steve, how many people in the city city government have been vaccinated at this point, or are otherwise recovered from the virus or whatever? What's the
those are 2 different questions.
Well, I'm just trying to get at the protection levels.
Yeah, as far as the vaccine is concerned, the only numbers that I've heard so far are from the police and fire departments, and I would say that those are roughly in the range of 60 to 80% have received the vaccine. And I don't know about the rest of the workforce.
Herd immunity. Councilor Frankie, and then, I'm sorry, Rick.
Just a request for the city manager for the next meeting. Would you check with the school system and see where they stand in terms of teacher vaccination and the what the schools stand in terms where the schools stand in terms of in-person learning? Thank you.
Yes, sir, I will.
Anyone else?
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you. I was waiting for a second.
I was waiting.
It's my bedtime.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.